Tato katoa, good evening. Cyclone Gabrielle has whipped up huge swells in the upper North Island today, and high winds have forced trees onto power lines, leaving around 50,000 homes without electricity. The CEO of Northland Lines company North Power said they hadn't seen this level of damage since Cyclone Bowler in 1988. Severe weather warnings remain in place for the north, Coromandel, the east coast all the way to Hawke's Bay and Taranaki. Only parts of Auckland have suffered substantial damage, but residents are being warned not to get complacent just yet. Tonight will be the big test. Now, we have reporters in hotspots around the North Island, and we begin our coverage in Northland tonight with Lauren Hendrickson.
Cyclone Gabrielle made sure Northlanders won't forget her in a hurry. These coastal properties in Ruakaka completely flooded as relentless rain battered the region. The power of the storm flattening not just fences but forcing boats onto roads and swallowing endless farmland. The Te Hehe stream was more like a raging river. The staircase in Ruakaka washed away.
Pretty bloody scary, isn't it?
Fire and Emergency responded to hundreds of calls, like this tree which toppled onto Jane Marie Defoff's house.
About 1:30 this morning we heard a really loud crash. Smash. It sounds like a truck flew through the house.
She was home with 4 children at the time and left in the dark without power. She considers herself lucky to be alive.
Car was holding the tree up from going any further into the house.
Linda Deccan and Brian Moffat are also without power and were isolated overnight. The road to their Pārua Bay property blocked by slips, surface flooding and downed trees.
We've got a small generator, we've got solar charging, batteries, everything.
And to top it off, their home flooded at high tide.
We've had water in here before, but not to this extent. Flooded the whole of our lounge, all of our spare room.
Power outages have swept right across the region, impacting at least 28,000 households in Northland.
We haven't seen damage like this since Cyclone Bowler back in the late 80s.
A soup kitchen has been set up to feed crews working around the clock, but North Power's chief executive warns the damage is so widespread there won't be a quick fix for everyone.
Just got to prepare for long-term power outages. We don't like to say this, we always like to get people back on the same day, but the reality is here it could be several days.
Earlier today, as many as 40 Vodafone cell sites were down in Northland, with many located in rural areas where access is limited. Meanwhile, Waka Kotahi is urging people to take extra care on the roads, with flooding, slips and fallen trees closing highways across the region and causing delays. A brutal day for many as the region braces for more impact.
Well, let's go to Lauren. Kia ora, Lauren. It could be a long time before people get their power back.
Yes, that's right, Mike. Crews are working as fast as they can. More than 4,000 households have had their power restored since this morning, but the issue is just as quickly as one fault is fixed, several new trees topple down. It's really difficult to put into perspective just how many trees have come down in this region, and got to the point that my cameraman and I just simply couldn't film them all to show you. And while some households will get their power back overnight or tomorrow, a warning it could take up to a week for others. North Power tonight issuing a statement saying areas like the Tutukaka coast and Hikurangi have suffered significant damage. It will require a major rebuild and crews are being brought in from outside of Whangarei to help assist with this operation.
Lauren, tēnā koe. Monster swells in Whitianga have caused widespread erosion and swept across roads to flood properties.
There are concerns the next high tide in the early hours of the morning will inundate more properties and cause much more damage. Ashley Yates is there.
Spewing onto roads with force and cutting into the land. Normally the prized view of these beachfront properties. Now the ocean is flooding this motel.
This is our whole life here. We live here, we work here, so I don't know what we're going to do.
Locals heeding a social media SOS from the owners of the motel, bringing in more sandbags. Well, some could only watch.
We're getting surges about every 10-15 minutes will come through.
Down the road at Brophy's Beach, severe coastal inundation closed roads, leading to commuter chaos.
So we just had to help push them out of the floodwaters, which is about knee deep, I suppose, waist deep. Yeah, pretty crazy.
Every effort was made to protect this home from coastal erosion. Its neighbour, the iconic Mercury Bay Boating Club, had already been moved back 28 metres during last month's severe weather. But the buffer zone is being eroded with every wave.
During last night's high tide cycle, which was around 12:30 to 1 o'clock, 1 a.m., we lost 1 metre to 1.5 metres in that high tide cycle. And I'd say we've lost at least that much now during this high tide cycle.
The severe weather and gale force winds knocked out power to 7,000 properties around Thames Coromandel. Powerco saying it will take time for power to be restored.
As we've come through today and we're heading into tonight, things are taking a bit of a turn. We're getting multiple power outages. The roading network, the entire roading network is becoming compromised. There's lots of slips.
There are concerns for the already ravaged section of State Highway 25A from Kopu to Hikuai, a critical route that's one of many closed or compromised in the region.
We have about 150 personnel, or the cavalry as I call them, have arrived to help us out, and they are strategically placed around the Coromandel with a big contingent in Whitianga to respond.
The Army and other members of the New Zealand Defence Force were also busy placing sandbags to protect this retirement village.
The boys have been working extremely hard, but they are sort of quite motivated, and they are sort of, this is ultimately what it's always signed up to do. So, yeah, and we're glad to be here.
On a day that's been anything but picture perfect.
Well, Ashley joins us now from Whitianga. Ashley, there are big concerns about the next high tide.
Yes, that's right, Sam. It's going to be a sleepless night for many along this coastline here in Whitianga. That high tide is due at 1:45 tomorrow morning. Obviously, those flooded properties, there is the risk that there will be more flooding with that high tide. We're currently back here at Buffalo Beach, which featured in my story. As you can see, the flooding here has significantly receded, but there has been debris left from the ocean, which is now scattered across the road. We're just going to pan now to show you the ocean, which has a very unusual orange-brown hue to it, just showing exactly what this ocean and the swells are churning up here. I'm not too sure if you'll be able to make that out at home, but it's a very unusual sight to see here in Whitianga.
Ashley Ngamihi, thanks so much. Emergency crews are preparing to work through the night with scores of call-outs across the Coromandel already.
But despite the warnings, authorities are concerned not everyone is taking the threat seriously. Karen Rutherford reports.
Cyclone Gabrielle isn't just packing a punch, she's trying to floor the Coromandel. And not everyone is heeding the warnings.
I don't know, I'm just nosy.
But maybe not that safe.
Yeah, probably not.
In Pauanui, power's been out for much of the day and part of the night, forcing stores like the Super Value into a race against time.
We've got to keep it all cold.
Right, Steve?
Yep.
Let's go.
As shoppers looked for cans in the dark, new mum Katie Wardenberg stocked up on just-in-case formula for her 2-week-old son.
Obviously with the Kopu Hikuai closed and then any other road closures, you're pretty isolated, so you're really just hunkering down and hoping for the best.
Yeah. This house in Thornton Bay, north of Thames, was already dislodged after Cyclone Hail. Gabrielle's now slapped her calling card at the door. Fire crews up and down the peninsula have been on the tools for hours. Sleep will have to wait tonight, with some roofs already starting to lift.
It's pretty turbulent. The rain's going one way and the wind the other, so we don't know which way it's coming from.
Hammering the already compromised Key State Highway 25 between Tairua, Hikuai and Waihi. And making that hole-in-one at Whangamata even more elusive than ever, with up to 40 millimetres of rain expected throughout the night.
Kia ora, Karen. You've been into the Civil Defence Emergency Shelter. What's the message from officials there?
Well, we were in there not so long ago, Mike, and there's a lovely man in there with lots of hot food and hot coffee waiting to welcome people into safety. At the moment, it's virtually empty, which is a sign that people are hunkering down. All the towns we've been to, Tairua, Pauanui, the Hikuai area, right through to Whangamata today, they've all been virtually empty. Officials are urging people, though, they are reiterating this is dangerous and it is unprecedented, and they're saying please do not wait to come into the emergency shelters. The biggest downpours are expected between 12 a.m. and 5 a.m. throughout the night. They would rather people self-evacuate while it's daylight to make things easier for emergency crews. We've just missed the emergency fire crews here at Whangamata. The alarm has just gone off and one crew's gone off. They've been rotating throughout the day, attending call-outs with an emergency set for the Hauraki District Council and as well as the Waikato Regional Council. They're preparing for a very long night. They're hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst, Mike.
Karen, thank you. In other centres, Whakatane has also declared a state of emergency this afternoon, and in Opotiki, the Defence Force is planning to evacuate nearly 500 households from low-lying areas ahead of high tide overnight. Tauranga City Council has closed several parks and reserves, including the Mao Base track, to deter people from gathering. Dangerous swells have been seen smashing onto the shoreline at Mount Manganui Beach, with some locals spotted on boogie boards in the water.
A state of emergency has been declared in Gisborne and homes are being evacuated as the region faces heavy rain and gale force winds. A red rain warning is now in place from the East Cape all the way down to southern Hawke's Bay. Alexa Cook is with us now live from Gisborne. Alexa, how's it looking there now?
Well, it's absolutely bucketing down and these rivers are filling up fast and the worst is yet to come, with some areas bracing for nearly half a metre of rain overnight. Areas like Tolaga Bay, which is just north of here, and their Hikawai River has already reached 13 metres. And as is typical for this region, we're seeing lots of forestry debris and slash coming down those rivers. Some rural areas are being evacuated today, and those are ones that live near these swollen river banks. Now, as for the roads, well, you can't get to Tolaga Bay anymore from Gisborne because State Highway 35 has been closed due to the risk of slips and trees coming down. And this is happening to a region that is just 4 weeks after the devastating cyclone hail wreaked havoc here.
And we're still mopping up the mess from then, and we're just in the process of doing the recovery. Now we are going to start at the beginning again. So it's tough for our community. It's a big emotional and financial toll and an environmental toll on our community.
And it's far from over. Those wild weather warnings are in place for the entire east coast until tomorrow morning. And actually, we've just heard that the road between Napier and Wairoa, State Highway 2, has been closed because of surface flooding and slips. So look, authorities are warning people, if you're in a vulnerable or a low-lying area, please get out, self-evacuate before it gets dark, because it's going to be a hell of a wild night.
Alexa, thank you for that update.
And that red heavy rain warning in Hawke's Bay will last until 7 a.m. tomorrow. Met Service expects the ranges and hills south of Napier will receive between 250 and 350 millimetres of rain. The Ruahine ranges could get up to 400 millimetres. The wind warning remains orange until midday tomorrow, meaning strong winds and gusts are likely.